Thanks for stopping by my channel. Today we are going to be playing Touchstarved. This is my first time doing anything like this, so I hope you guys will bear with me. I think it's going to be fun because, to be honest, in the description, this was kind of like a lot of the books that I read. Remind me a lot about the dark fantasy stuff that I like. So we're gonna give it a shot, and I'm gonna take and have you guys follow along. Here we go. If my mouse works. There we go. So there are some disclaimers. I've already gone in and turned the music down to volume down to 0. I was playing with this a bit, make sure I could do this, make sure all the recording stuff worked, since this is my first time. And like I said, this is a demo, so there's only the prologue is not completely finished yet, which is kind of a bummer, but that's okay. This is intended for mature audiences. There's going to be some stuff in here that's kind of graphic, so I would say that if you have a weak stomach or don't like that sort of thing, probably not watch this. And yes, I accept. So decisions matter in this game, and when you see the red text, it means that something that you did is making a change in your story. Those were just the controls. I'm going to go with my old standby Jinx. And then we're going to choose our pronouns, which I'm going with she and her. This world began to unravel long before you were born. It began with fogfall. Spectral mist bled from the seams where reality wore so thin it split. It's not good. And from that fog emerged monsters, inhuman beings with unnatural powers. Some possessed language and intellect, others were mindless beasts, driven by little more than the desire to slaughter. As cities fell and unrest spread, humans united in their fear while monsters thrived in the chaos. And then there's you. You're not even sure you're human. You were born cursed, with hands that altered the minds of anyone who you touched. Choose your backstory. So we have 3 options to choose from. The Unnamed, which is a fallen oracle. You were raised as an oracle in a remote temple. The priest claimed your touch bestowed enlightenment, but a visiting mage revealed your curse for what it is. Following the mage's words, you fled in search of the cenobium. You regularly experience unnatural premonitions that rattle your body and soul. An innate sixth sense gives you a heightened awareness of hidden supernatural presences around you. So then we have the Hound, a forsaken thief. You were raised by society's outcasts, criminals who accepted you when nobody else would. Your partner in crime, a friend since childhood, helped you steal enough money for a cure, then betrayed you. They left you with only enough coin to travel to the cenobium, your last hope. You have sharply honed social intuition. You can survive and even thrive in the violent underbelly of any city, using your experience with the underworld to get ahead. And then our last one is the alchemist, an abandoned mage. An exiled Cenobian mage took you in as a child, raised you as her apprentice. She seemed to take pity on your curse, but you discovered that she was cultivating you as a test subject. You fled to the Cenobium seeking a cure. You are an experienced spellcaster with encyclopedic knowledge of alchemy, spellcraft, and history. With a little observation, you can identify the subtle effects of magic. We're gonna go with the thief, just because that's what I usually go with. So, your name is Jinx. You selected she, her pronouns. Your backstory is the Hound. Is this correct? Yes. Yes, it is. The wasteland stretches as far as the eye can see. There's nothing out here but death, the ever-present stench of decay, and countless sun-bleached bones cast like seeds across the barren land. Not cool. I could say death doesn't scare me, but to tell the truth, I'm desperate. It's been 2 weeks since I joined the caravan bound across the waste. Finding a group that would accept me was a trial in itself. As rations grew sparse and my canteen ran dry, I began to despair, but then I saw it. Dun, 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 dun. Eridia, the city of knowledge, one of the last bastions of humanity left in the world, and home to the famous academy called the Cenobium. All the world's knowledge gathered in one place. If there's anywhere I'll find a cure for my curse, it's there. All that stands between me and a cure is a final stretch of salt-soaked wastes, or so I think, until I see the first tendrils of fog snaking beneath the wagon. Is this fogfall? My stomach sinks at the very whisper of it. A silent storm more devastating than fire, dangerous in cities, but a death sentence beyond them. A thick blanket of fog engulfs us, smothering out the lantern's light. The wagon lurches to a stop. An eerie silence, heavy as the mist falls over us. The only warning we get is a strangled scream. Stay back! No! The cry dissolves into wet gurgling. Then the wagon violently pitches to the side. I hit the ground hard, the air punched from my lungs. When I open my eyes, adrenaline lends sudden, awful clarity to the carnage around me. A traitor I once shared bread with lies face down in the mud, their back reduced to long strings of torn muscle, gleaming gristle, and exposed bone. Bodies litter the wasteland. You. I try to rise, but my ankle explodes with pain so blinding, white blooms across my vision. Only when my eyes adjust do I see the dark shape in front of me. A soulless stoops over the twisted form of a caravaner. I freeze, but it swivels its head. A dozen bulging eyes twitch in my direction and blink as one. Sorry, guys. Yeah, these things creep me out. Like, things with eyes like this. Especially in games, because usually you can't, like, kill them easily. You have to, like, pop out all their eyes. And it's gross. And this one's got like one right there. That's weird. Alright, sorry. The soulless lets out an ear-splitting shriek and runs at me. But right before it reaches me, the beast's barrel past, vanishing into the mist. Distantly, a horse screams in the dark. I need to move now. We're going to... Choices are run for the city, head towards the wagon. I'm gonna run for the city. I take off running deeper into the haze. The fog is so thick that I fear I'm heading in the wrong direction until I see a dim pinprick of light emanating from the shadows of a spire. It's faint, but it's enough. I came too far to die here. Rapid footsteps echo all around me. I turn in circles, frantically searching the opaque mist for the source, but the fogfall twists and stretches sound. Suddenly, the caravan's driver bursts forth from the fog. Our eyes meet too late. He slams into me, knocking me to the ground, and slips in a patch of mud. The solace falls on him as soon as he slows. He catches the driver by the throat and rakes his stomach with a razor-sharp claws. He comes apart like wet paper, spilling intestines and viscera in a steaming tide. Fighting the urge to heave, I claw frantically through the slippery muck for a handhold. Oops. Shit. My hand catches on a jagged edge of a rib jutting from the water. Bandages unfurl around the gouge torn deep in my palm. The pain's quickly forgotten when a hand closes around my wrist. Can you stand? One of the travelers from the caravan leans over me. We need to run. They reach for my hand, and I realize too late that my bandages have come undone. No, don't touch me. The sensation of their thumb brushing the back of my hand sends a shiver down my spine. All it takes is one touch, and in the space of a breath, my curse takes hold. Their lips peel back into a deranged grin. No, I've seen this face countless times before. This is my curse. Madness of my own making. Their grip on my hand tightens until pain radiates from my knuckles. Let me... Suddenly, clammy hands crush my throat, choking off my breath. Die, 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 die. Spit bubbles at the corners of their mouth and flecks my face. The edges of my vision darken as my lungs scream for air. Let's try to fight him off. Because, I mean, he's got our... We can't really scream. So, let's fight him off. My nails gouge deep into the traveler's wrist, but no matter how much blood I draw, they don't flinch. The more I struggle, the tighter their grip grows. My pulse hammers in my ears, slowing with each thudding beat. This can't be happening. I'm going to die, and not because of the fogfall or the soulless, but because of my own curse. Tears sting my eyes. No, 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 not here. Not like this. The hands drop from my neck, leaving me wheezing for air. My lungs burn with each ragged cough. My vision clears, and the traveler's face takes shape, hovering inches from mine. Lips still split in the macabre smile, even as blood seeps between their teeth. They give one last shuddering breath, then slump over the claws hooked through their stomach. The soulless shoves the body aside, and the glowing eyes studying its leathery skin thin as though it's grinning. Ugh. There's a flash of claws. Reds spill across my vision. We're gonna die. I thought there'd be pain, but as I sink into the murky water, all I can feel is the grit of silt filling my mouth and the icy embrace of the shallow water. Distantly, I notice an arm resting among an outcrop of reeds. Mine, neatly severed at the elbow. It should have taken both arms. Without them, maybe I could have survived. Maybe I could have had a home. Instead, I'll die, cold, alone, and face down in a desolate wasteland. A fitting end to a monstrosity like me. Ooh. Okay. Well, that was pretty gruesome. No. If this is death, it's not as bad as I feared. The cold is gone, as is the choking stench of bog water. I could drift forever, cocooned in oblivion, until all thought and sensation vanish. No curse, nobody howling at me in madness and terror, nothing at all. The thought has a terrible appeal to it. But the next moment I take a reflective breath. Air pours into my lungs and then out again in a ragged gasp. Feeling comes flooding back. Warm cloth on my bare skin, a firm surface underneath me, a strange tang of sulfur in the air. Do not be afraid. I twist my head towards the voice. Tears flood my blurry vision at the bright glow of lamplight. Wow. Try not to move. The voice is calm, steady, and commanding, but more importantly, it's a stranger's voice. One thought cuts through my mental fog. I have no idea who this is, and I am completely at their mercy. Stay away from me. My words come out a little more than a creaky whisper. I clamp my mouth shut, hating how weak and helpless I sound. No. No? Who the hell is this? Okay. We're gonna try and sit up. I manage to push myself up on one elbow, but my head swims and my surroundings give an alarming lurch. A stubborn patient. I don't have the strength to dignify that with a response. Instead, I pull the sheet up higher and wipe my eyes until my vision clears. The stranger towers over my prone form, white light reflecting off his pristine medical coat. I instinctively shrink back, and that's when I notice that I am completely naked, except for a thin linen sheet. Naked, lying on a low cot with a pair of sharp, golden eyes watching my every move. The man's gaze flickers to my exposed, unbandaged hands. I plunge my hands under the sheet to hide them from sight, though it's too late. He must have noticed what they look like. I mean, he probably was the one that took the bandages off, so he's probably already seen everything. Just saying. Strange, cursed, inhuman. I brace myself for his inevitable suspicion and distrust, but his expression doesn't even flicker from that courteous smile. He just watches in placid silence as I struggle to make sense of my surroundings. Where am I? Who are you? Be calm. You are safe here. Whoever this is, he clearly has no idea who or what I am. I've never been safe anywhere, with anyone. The only people I ever trusted betrayed me for a fat purse of coin. I scowl, pulling the sheet protectively around myself. Where are my clothes? The man's golden eyes narrow slightly. A sharp sigh rustles the papers in his hands. I see you are not to be dissuaded. Your clothes were torn to shreds when I found you, but I procured replacements. With a soft creak, he stands from his chair, giving me a better view of my surroundings. I seem to be in some sort of medical clinic. Bottles of silvery alchemic concoctions line the counters in neat rows. The air makes my nose twitch, a faint whiff of smoke, and something distinctly metallic that I can't quite place. The doctor produces a large, dense bundle of cloth, which he sets at the foot of my cot. He's easily a head taller than most, and I have to crane my neck to look up at him. Let's be nice, because it means either thank you or could you step out. And that's kind of rude because we're in his office. So we're going to go nice. We're going to say thank you. I should be polite if I can, especially since I don't know who this is, what he can do, or what he wants with me. Thank you. You are welcome. I will leave you to get dressed. With a curt nod, he leaves through a narrow door. I hear a soft click as the lock turns behind him. I count to 3 in the sudden silence. When I don't hear any more footsteps, I reach for the bundle of clothes. An itch on my elbow stops me short. I reach down absently to rub at it, then freeze when my fingers meet a neat line of stitches. I know what I saw. That beast took my arm clean off. And yet my arm shows no sign of injury apart from the black stitches poking through my skin. I gingerly flex my fingers, feeling my heart race at the sensation. This is impossible. I should be dead, or at the very least gasping out my last breath. I squeeze my eyes shut, waiting for the pleasant dream to unravel, to wake up bleeding out in the swamp. But nothing happens. The seconds tick by, and my arm remains resolutely healed, my surroundings pristine and quiet. In numb disbelief, I reach for the replacement clothes and begin stiffly pulling them on. They're thicker and warmer than mine were, with a black woolen cloak to go with them. But there's one thing still missing, my bandages. The golden-eyed man didn't leave me with any, even though I know he saw my hands. I slide off the bed and take a few uneasy steps towards one of the drawers. If this is indeed a doctor's clinic, there must be bandages somewhere. I start opening drawers at random, and of course, that's when the door swings open once more. Are you looking for something? I whirl around, clutching a thick roll of clean bandages. I try to step back from him, but my legs bump up against the edge of the cot. Your caution is understandable, though if I meant to harm you, you would know. That doesn't make me feel any better in the slightest, but he makes no move towards me, so I quickly wind the bandages around my hands. The glowing scars and mottled skin disappear under a layer of clean white cotton. May I ask why you need additional bandages? I clench my jaw. I knew it would only be a matter of time before he asked about my hands, though the way he does it is strangely roundabout. Well, we really don't have much. We either can say nothing, glare at him, or decline to answer. I'm gonna go with glare at him. Seems what my character would do. I fix him with a dead-eyed glare, the one that used to send my fellow thieves into shuddering silence. He doesn't even blink, meeting my eyes serenely as I finish tying my bandages. I'm not easily intimidated. I hastily break eye contact, but he says nothing more. At least he doesn't seem angry. But if he wants answers out of me, I'm still going to need something from him first. Who are you? You may call me Karas. And where am I exactly? Eridia, which I assume was your caravan's destination. I can think of nowhere else for a group of travelers to go. Eridia. So I made it to the city of knowledge after all. I should feel relieved, but all I can manage is a vague sense of increasing unease. How did I end up here? I brought you to my clinic, of course. You were the only survivor from the caravan, barely clinging to life. You needed immediate treatment, which you provided. Yes. He says it so simply, as if I'm a small child and he's explaining basic addition to me. I frown and flex the fingers on my recently healed arm. Aside from being a bit stiff, it feels fine, thoroughly attached to me. You're saying that you stitched my arm back on. Pardon? A soulless attacked the caravan. It ripped everyone to shreds. It tore my arm clean off. But when I woke up here, I trail off, bewildered. I've never heard of any magic that could heal a mortal wound like that. What kind of person could do such a thing? The doctor, Karas, pinches the bridge of his nose. He sits back down in his chair, quiet for a long time. I do not know where you come from, but Eridia is the city of knowledge, and deadly secrets alike. Information is power, and it is most unwise to give or receive it freely. Since you have refused to divulge your secrets, I will not divulge mine. I do not even know your name. You're new to Eridia, so I will overlook the specific breach of etiquette. However, you should not expect others to extend the same courtesy. Do you understand? He looks pointedly at my freshly bandaged hands. Loath to admit it, he has a point. I'm also a complete stranger to him, and if he's telling the truth, he saved my life. I take a deep, steadying breath. This time when I speak, I sound a bit more like myself. Jinx. My name is Jinx. It is a pleasure to meet you, Jinx. There's a little more warmth in his smile. His polite demeanor is back in an instant. Let's keep going with the polite. Thank you. Thank you for saving my life. I chance a smile in return. Even if he won't explain how he did the impossible, there is no doubt in my mind that I'd be dead if not for Cross. Think nothing of it. I'm not sure if he is just being excessively courteous, but his words only raise more urgent questions. But I have to ask, why did you save me? You don't know me. The question seems to startle Karas. Okay, look at his face. I'm sorry, that's just funny. I could hardly leave you to die in the wastes. Assisting those in need is the very essence of a doctor's duty. I have never met a doctor who handed out free clothes. Neither have I. My fingers find the edge of the cloak. There's a subtle but delicately embroidered pattern around the hem. I try not to think about what kind of price Cross might ask for such well-made clothes. No, I suppose not. Forgive my presumption. I rarely come across so fascinating a patient. I blank. What did he just say? I simply meant that few would cling to life so resolutely, or brave such a perilous journey to Eridia. I could not help being curious about you, Jinx. His voice dips to a soft murmur, and he abruptly looks away from me. Ooh. Let's see, we have two options. You're pretty curious yourself. I don't know what to say to that. Let's flirt. You're pretty curious yourself. Am I? Well, I haven't forgotten about my arm. I wiggle my intact fingers at him. Clearly not. But you haven't asked me for payment either. I require none from you. Travelers do not have an abundance of coin, and it would be unethical to leave you destitute in a strange place. I fall silent, unsure what to say. Nobody would help a whore like me for free. There has to be some kind of catch or trick, right? A loud knock at the front door stops our conversation cold and spares me from having to say anything else. Duty calls. Unfortunately, you are not my only patient today. The knocking grows more insistent, and Chris lets out a tired sigh. Please wait your turn. Though he says it quietly, the clamor on the other side of the door abruptly stops. Do you need anything before you leave, Jinx? Oh. Between the soulless attack and my miraculous survival, I'd almost forgotten why I came to Eridia in the first place. I need directions to the cenobium. The cenobium. The look on his face is downright chilling. He pauses, choosing his words with cold deliberation when he speaks again. Whatever you seek, it is very unlikely you will find it there. The cenobium's gates open for precious few visitors. Even if they did, you would not like what you found inside. My heart sinks. Is he saying that I came all this way for nothing? Risked life and limb for nothing? No, that can't be. I've only just arrived, and Eridia is the largest city still standing. There has to be a cure for me here. Then, if not the cenobium, where would you suggest? Do you know anyone else in Eridia? I shake my head. Then I suggest a local guide. Head to the Wet Wick and ask for Leander. Excuse me? The wet what? The Wet Wick. He sounds deeply unamused. Yeah, amused. Follow the postings advertising Leander's bloodhounds. They're difficult to miss. When you meet Leander, tell him I sent you. That isn't much to go on, but Chris points towards the clinic's back door. You will be safe so long as you do not draw attention to yourself. That's easier said than done. I've always been a magnet for the worst sort of attention. If you require my assistance, you may return whenever you wish. Though he's smiling, there's a note of finality in his voice. Resigned to my dismissal, I slip out the back door. I find myself standing in a narrow, rather gloomy alley. I pull the new cloak up over my nose, stepping around the contents of a chamber pot that has been emptied into the street. Something weighs heavily inside one of the cloak's pockets. My coin purse. Everything is still inside. Every last coin that I scraped together for the journey to Eridia. It doesn't even look like it was open. There were so few coins to begin with, they probably weren't worth stealing. I glanced back at the clinic's closed door. Karas didn't take any payment. He didn't even ask for a future favor. He also said that in Eridia, secrets are power. Does he expect me to give up mine at some point? That's not exactly a comforting thought. Still, no matter why he did it, Cross gave me a second chance and a lead on where I might find help. I'd better get going before he changes his mind. I squeeze out of the alley and into the crowded main street. The line outside Cross's clinic stretches down the road already. 2 thin peddlers queue alongside weathered elders. If any place is in desperate need of a free clinic, it's this one. The cobblestones are treacherously rough under my feet, deep grooves worn between them by the regular flooding and decades of hard use. I knew Eridia was a river city, but I didn't expect it to look so eroded. The buildings are tired and dilapidated, all crammed together in narrow streets. A child darts by, clutching something greasy wrapped in paper. The smell of fried foods drifts over me. My stomach gives a faint gurgle. This morning's catch, fried up hot and fresh, not too many eyeballs today. That sounds disgusting, but I'm starving, so I duck my head under the stall's grubby awning. A large fish leers up at me, its 3 bulging eyes still visible through the thick, crisp layer of crispy batter. The vendor gives me a gap-toothed grin. "What's the cheapest thing you've got?" The vendor points at a metal basket of what looks like long strips of savory fried dough. Ooh, I love fried dough. "Fresh long lads, 3 coppers apiece. Don't burn your mouth." I take the coins out, count them gingerly. At this rate, I might not even be able to afford dinner. Reluctantly, I drop the payment on the counter and take my meal. 2 streets later, I pass under a wrought iron archway adorned with a dangling garland of red and pink lilies. The buildings in this quarter are a dizzying riot of color, painted walls and tinted glass everywhere I look. Sheer red and pink curtains flutter in open doorways. Musical voices call out invitingly. Incense mingles with the pungent scent of flowers, barely covering the salt and musk of warm bodies. This must be Eridia's entertainment district. I'm polishing off my food and dusting the crumbs from my hands when I spot a poster. It features the silhouette of a smiling man wearing a single dagger-like earring and the words "Bloodhounds" printed above his head. A motto, "As above, so below," circles the artwork. If Leander is the leader of the Bloodhounds, then the face printed on the poster is likely his. I follow the line of identical posters around a corner and nearly hit my head on a precariously dangling wooden sign. Looking up, faded orange letters read, "The Wet Wick." The facade of the building looks like it's seen better days, but I hear a faint music and laughter coming from inside. The inside of the bar is a far cry from the abandoned exterior. It's not even midday yet, and most of the tables and booths are occupied by a loose assembly of people in matching green cloaks. There's a lot you can tell about a city by its dives. This one seems ordinary enough, even if the uniforms are unusual. A cursory glance doesn't turn up anyone with a dagger-shaped earring. I'm about to head towards the counter when a chant rises from the center of the room. "Show, show, show!" The remaining green cloaks abandon the bar and their booths to rush towards the center of the room in a sudden torrent. There's no time to move out of the way. I'm caught, swept along in the ale-stenched current. "Hey!" Rhythmic chanting drowns out my voice. I thrash, throwing out my elbow as the press of bodies grows heavier. My hip knocks into a table. I grip it, holding on tight to steady myself, but the crowd has stilled and the chanting stopped. A pair of gilded boots stride across the tabletop. Seriously, you dogs again? Scattered laughter and cheer rises from the audience. I drag my eyes upward. A well-dressed man stands on the table in front of me, his broad shoulders framed by thick lapels of a trench coat. This is really the last time, all right? This time when he speaks, the audience falls silent, as though bewitched by his magnetic presence or rich low voice. But nothing is as captivating as his smile. He beams at the crowd around him, a performer on his makeshift stage. Don't blink or you'll miss it. He laughs, and the dagger-shaped earring dangling from his left ear catches the light in a flash of gold. It would seem I've found Leander. He raises his hand above the audience and snaps. A flash of pale green light, real magic, no ordinary stage trick, blinds me. As the brilliance ebbs, my gaze refocuses on the mage towering above me. He flicks his wrist, and the magic spiraling around him coalesces. A delicate flower stem sprouts from between his pinched fingers. One by one, glowing lily petals spring forth. With a flourish, the mage presents the conjured flowers. The audience bursts into clapping and cheering. A genuine magic show was the last thing I expected from a place called the Wetwick. Leander plucks the iridescent bouquet out of the air and turns in a slow circle, giving his audience a good look. Now, who could use some good luck? Eager onlookers scooch closer to the table. Some reach for the lilies while others whistle and call Leander's name. But his cool green eyes slide right over them, locking on me instead. How about you? My chest tightens. Every person gathered turns to stare at me. Do we take the flowers or refuse the flowers? Take the flowers, refuse the flowers. Let's take the flowers. I reach out, all too aware of the way my fingers tremble as I carefully take the flowers from him. There's no weight to them, only a faint warmth that radiates from the stems. As soon as the flowers leave Leander's hand, their light dims. They fade away in a shower of opalescent light. To my surprise, Leander laughs under his breath. That's the problem with flowers. They don't last long, but they leave an impression, right? He grins at me, and I find myself smiling back. Leander steps off the table, dropping among the excited crowd with an audible clink. All right, bloodhounds, get back to your drink. Show's over. The green cloaks disperse at his command, returning to their tables and booths. Before I can make my way to Leander, his eyes find me. He gives me a friendly wave, then beckons me over to the crowded counter. I manage to squeeze beside him, but there's so little room that his broad shoulders press against mine. I tense, but he doesn't seem to mind at all. Is this your first time in Eridia? He says it lightly, with a genuine air of curiosity. Do I stick out that much? No, but I'm certain I'd remember seeing a face as lovely as yours around here. Oh, sorry. I screwed up. Let's see. My eyes flicker to the polished countertop. I'm not used to flattery, and being this close makes eye contact difficult. As if on cue, the bartender approaches us. What can I get you? Surprise me and add anything my friend wants to my tab. I wasn't expecting the generosity, but I have to admit, I do feel a little thirsty after all that fried dough. So we have to choose. I'll have what he's having. Water's good. That's like kind of tough. I'll have what he's having. I'll have what he's having. While the bartender leaves to fix our drinks, Leander leans his elbow on the counter. I'm close enough to notice the purple shadows under his lower lids. His eyes wander over me in return, but when they lock on my bandaged hands, a sour taste rises in my throat. Here come the questions. So, what brings you to the Wick? Cross sent me. He pushes his hair back from his forehead, but it immediately falls right back into place. So, it's about work. The bartender returns with a pair of glasses filled with what I can only assume is beer. I raise my glass and give it an experimental sniff. It smells faintly yeasty, but with an undercurrent I can't quite place. A quick sip confirms my worst suspicions. It's awful, somehow briny and sour in a way that reminds me of pickles. Pickly beer. Ugh. But any thought of complaining dies the moment I look up and see Leander taking a deep swig from his glass. He lets out a satisfied breath. How can I be of assistance? I need to get to the cenobium. As soon as the word cenobium leaves my mouth, the entire bar falls silent. Bloodhounds twist around in their seats to gawk openly. Finally, an especially drunk one speaks up. The hell you are, bringing up the cenobium in here. Throw him out. This is bloodhound territory. The vitriol catches me off guard. From the angry looks thrown my way, it's clear I've broken some unspoken rule just by mentioning the cenobium. When I glance at Leander, he's drinking, as though he hasn't noticed the uproar. Only when he catches me looking does he lower his glass. For the love of... He drags a hand down his face. Hey, keep it down, will you? This is business. I tense, expecting an argument, but the outspoken bloodhound silently returns to their drinks. Only a handful continue to watch me warily. Sorry about them. The cenobium's a bit of a touchy subject around these parts. Mix in enough drinks and, well, you saw. How about we continue this outside? When I give him a terse nod, he pushes away from the bar. I follow Leander to an alleyway tucked behind the wet wick, where layers of frayed bloodhound posters have been plastered to the walls. Seeing them side by side, the resemblance between Leander and his likeness on the posters is impressive. Cross didn't send you here for the help with the cenobium, did he? From the look he gives me, he already knows the answer. I glance away. No, he didn't. He suggested I find an alternative. Yet, here you are, asking about them anyway. What do you need the cenobium for? I don't want to tell him about my curse. The less people know about my capabilities, the better. Thankfully, Leander takes my reluctant silence as an answer. Well, I see you're already aware of the city's currency. Information's worth its weight in gold here. Cross told you the truth. The cenobium is dangerous. Get on their bad side and they'll imprison you if you're lucky, or torture you if you're not. But the cenobium's supposed to be a place of learning, a sanctuary. The cenobium has always been heralded as the last bastion of human knowledge, a shining beacon of hope in a world steeped in nightmares. If any place held answers, it would be the cenobium. That's why I came here. That's what they want you to think. But things that seem too good to be true often are just that. Such a simple statement, yet it leaves me reeling. If it's true, if I staked everything on a lie, then now what? Leander clears his throat. But, as I always say, there's a solution to every problem and an alternative to every solution. He claps his hands and turns to me with a brilliant smile. That's why Cross pointed you to the bloodhounds. Let us help you. Whether it's hunting soulless, fighting people, or recovering stolen valuables, we can do it all. And free of charge. I'm shaking my head before he even finishes his practiced speech. My patience is wearing dangerously thin. Listen, I appreciate the offer, but my problem can't be solved by a group of good Samaritans. To my I hate that word. To my chagrin, Leander nods slowly. Then your problem must be fairly serious, and if the cenobium's your first choice, you're searching for a magical solution, aren't you? When my eyes widen, he nods along, as though he suspected all along. I'd be happy to help you out. That is, if you'll tell me what ails you. Leander might not work for the cenobium, but he is a mage, and a powerful one if his demonstration earlier is any indication. I'm silent, plagued by indecision. I don't know if I can trust him, but it's not like I have any alternatives. I hate to admit it, but this could be my only path forward. My confession comes out a pained whisper. I'm cursed. Cursed? Oh, now I'm very curious. What kind of curse? Something ancestral or more recent? He looks me up and down, taking in my face, my eyes, and finally my hands. It's your hands, isn't it? I wait until I'm certain my voice will remain steady before answering. My touch is dangerous. It changes people, hurts them. Before I even finish, Leander begins taking his glove off. He tugs his left hand free and flexes his fingers. Let's see it. He offers me his hand, and a prismatic flash of magic ripples across his palm, but I'm already shrinking backwards. I can't. I don't care how confident Leander is. I can't bring myself to hurt him, to see his kind face twisted into a mask of madness. Believe me, this isn't an ordinary curse. I'll be fine. Perhaps where you come from, your affliction was strange and one of a kind. But spend a year in the city, you'll see 1,000 curses and thrice as many cures. Do you really think Cross would send you here if I couldn't handle it? How should I know? I only met him today. I'm as good as any mage in the cenobium. Better even. If they can help, so can I. You don't know what you're asking me. I'm asking you to trust me. I look from Leander's outstretched hand to his confident smile. Then, with a short breath, I begin unwinding the bandages from my hand. Fine, but if you lose control, don't say I didn't warn you. You can tie me up first if that makes you feel better. Aw, he likes that idea. Look at the blush. With each joint I expose, I grow more and more certain that this is a terrible idea. Ready when you are. If he's bothered by the way my hand looks, he doesn't show it. My fingers hover shakily over his palm. 3, 2, 1. Oh, now I get to choose. Are we gonna touch him? We're gonna hold back. Let's touch him. I tap his palm once, as quickly as possible. It's barely more than a brush, but that's all it ever takes. When I look up at his face, expecting to see the worst, Leander only grins. See? It can't be. This time when I reach out to touch Leander's palm again, he catches my wrist before I can pull away. I told you, there's really nothing to worry about. He trails off when my thumb brushes the soft skin of his inner wrist. I search Leander's face for traces of madness, but his eyes remain a clear, soft green. Color rises to his cheeks, but he remains still except for the subtle bobbing of his throat. Neither of us speak as I trace the contours of Leander's palm, lost in awareness I wasn't prepared for. I've been with other people, kissed them, been embraced by them, and more. But not like this. My fingers, long deprived by years of bandaging, pick up every single detail. The grooves of his palm, the smooth shell of his nails, the pulse of his heart. For as long as I've lived, I've never been able to hold someone's hand, not without dire consequences. I never realized what I was missing until this moment. While Leander's pulse is steady, mine is hammering as fear gives way to excitement. Oh, we're going to keep touching him. No, we're going to keep touching him. My hand glides over Leander's wrist and up his forearm, where smooth skin abruptly gives way to a raised scar by the edge of his sleeve. It matches the one that runs from his collar to his cheekbone. Could it be the same wound? I glance at Leander's face, and his lip part as he considers his words before speaking. Am I the first person you've been able to touch like this? My hand goes still on his arm. So far. I'll admit your touch does make it somewhat difficult to stay level-headed, but not due to your power. Ooh, he likes us. He takes my hand. His soft green eyes flick to mine before he turns to inspect the golden fissures crisscrossing my knuckles. Look, we match. He points at the golden pin on his coat collar, and I give him a small smile. I draw my hand back and take a steadying breath. My head feels as though it's stuffed with cotton. Habit alone guides me through the motions of rewrapping my hand, although my fingers tremble too much for the bandages to lie flat. I can't believe that worked. May I ask your name? I'm Jinx. You were right to hide this from me, Jinx. That curse of yours, it's unlike anything I've ever dealt with. I can tell you're discreet, but you'd best not go showing that off to anyone else. I didn't plan on it. Are you staying in Lowtown? I paused. Room and board was something I hadn't yet considered. I don't know. Let's get you properly settled then. The Wetwick is notably quieter without their leader. Most of the bloodhounds have dispersed, or in a few cases, fallen asleep beside their drinks. Got any rooms left, or did my lot grab them all to sleep it off? The bartender, who I now realize doubles as an innkeeper, slides a key onto the counter. You know I always keep a room in the corner. I always keep the corner room open for your escapades. Leander's laugh sounds slightly strained. And I always appreciate it, but you're mistaken. This is for my friend, Jinx. Sure. Stay as long as you like. You two have fun. Escapades, huh? Leander clears his throat, then holds the key out to me. But I hesitate. My coin purse barely holds enough for a day's worth of meals, let alone a room. How much do I owe you? Nothing. Bloodhound rates. My treat, since you shared your secret. Food, drink, and warm bed. Anything you need. Carefully, I take the key from him. It's small, but weighs heavy in my palm. I never expected to have a warm bed in Eridia, let alone free meals. I planned to steal whatever I needed to get by, no matter how dangerous. Thank you. Go explore, Jinx. You'll find many roads in Eridia, each leading to different answers. But if you need a reprieve from what haunts you, come find me. Just be careful. I nod, taking one last look at the gleaming bronze key before tucking it into the pocket of my cloak for safekeeping. Leander gives me one last friendly wave before I depart. Oh, there we go. The air clings sodden heavy. Without the morning crowd, the sunless street looks barren and bleak. Even the peddlers are long gone. Only a pair of crows remain, quibbling over the stale crusts in the gutter. I feel a ridiculous pain of envy. At least they've got a reason to fight. I've never felt so lost. Cross and Leander both made it clear that the cenobium can't be trusted. But I came so far, endured so much. I need to see the cenobium for myself, if only to satisfy my curiosity. I should have asked someone at the bar for directions before leaving. I'm about to turn back when a shadow passes over me. A cloud, I think, until a puff of hot breath tickles the back of my neck. The shadow runs down the street in rivulets. Formless dark spreads like ink into blotted shape. Claws stretch. A muzzle splits open to reveal long, jagged teeth. A growl rumbles low and deep. I feel it. I want to run, to scream, but I feel trapped, as though the slightest movement or single breath will snap the jaws around me shut. No, I won't let it end like this. If I'm going to die, I want to see what got me first. I steel myself, then turn. The shadow vanishes as quickly as it came. I'm left standing in the middle of the street alone, except for a figure reclining in the shade of a nearby stoop. Ooh. A monster, that much is clear from a glance. One that could nearly be mistaken for human, if not for the tufted ears, the tail curled around his ankles, or the dusk pink eyes with pupils that sharpen like needles when they fall on me. Our eyes meet, and the monster uncrosses his long legs. His hair gleams a shade of red that reminds me unsettlingly of blood, where it curls around his collared throat. Aren't you? His tone is so light and carefree that I glance over my shoulder to make sure he's speaking to me. When I look back, the stranger props his chin on his knuckles and regards me with an inscrutable little smile. Didn't you see that shadow just now? It was massive. It moved like a beast. Even as I speak, I'm aware of how ridiculous it must sound, but the stranger's smile doesn't falter. The only beast I've seen are the Wick's drooling regulars, though this did catch my eye. With a flourish of his hand, my in-room key appears dangling from his finger. It turns on its chain, glittering when it catches the light. My hand flies to my cloak's pocket, and sure enough, find them flat. He crooks his finger, beckoning. I've already taken 2 steps forward before some stifled instinct stops me. Something feels wrong. I'm still on edge, thrumming with so much adrenaline that the stranger's shadow flickers at the edge of my vision. I always attract the worst kind of attention, but I can't get rattled now. Let's go with... Where'd you find it? How'd you even find it? The key, I mean. What can I say? I'm a sucker for shiny things. He smiles wide enough to reveal pointed canines. I saw you drop it. You really should be more careful. City like this, somebody might take advantage. A bald-faced lie said without a hint of irony. I can't figure out how he picked my pockets under my nose, but I'm certain he took my key, and I need it back. I approach the man, careful to keep an arm's length away. He doesn't look dangerous, but the most deadly ones never do. The stranger's chain softly clinks with the tilt of his head. His ears flick. Keeping your distance? Until I figure out how you managed to rob me? Yeah, I am. You think I stole your dinky key from all the way over here? He gives an exaggerated sigh. I'm good with my hands, but not that good. Do I really look like a common thief to you? He's got me there. The sheer fabric of his sleeves alone would be too expensive for most street thieves. Hell, his shoes look like they cost more than I spent traveling here. Why do people always comment on the shoes? It's always the shoes. Expensive shoes mean that they're rich. Always. Always shoes. Sorry. Tirade. And then there's the shop behind him. No matter the city, parted pink curtains only ever mean one thing. I'm not looking to buy, and I doubt I could afford your services anyway. Lucky for you, I don't charge. The man runs the tip of his tongue over a fang, and for the first time since I stepped into that shadow, I feel something other than dread. My face grows hot. That's not what I meant. I'm flattered, really. Where's sex trade my... It's a good thing I'm not monetized. I'm flattered, really. Were sex my trade, I might make an exception for you. How about half off for a handy? Or you could just hand over my key. Ask nicely, and I might even let you tug on my tail. Just throw it here. So some spindly little street urchin can snatch it and run? He raises my key and tilts his head so he can watch it dangle back and forth. I suppose I could just claim your room for myself. Not that I'd be caught dead slumming in the wick with the rest of those slack-jawed imbeciles. You're obviously not from here, so tell me, traveler, what misfortune brought you to this wretched place? His voice practically drips with derision. I'm not telling you anything. What could have possibly drawn you to this dreary little pig pen, I wonder? He listlessly watched the arc of my key swing around his finger. The weather's shit, the food's dreck, and there's entirely too many monsters for a human to feel safe. Unless... Dagger-sharp eyes flick towards me. They gleam with amusement. Unless you're just dying to consort with monsters. By now, my embarrassment has worn away, leaving simmering impatience in its place. If this is a shakedown, it's the most frustrating one I've ever experienced. We're gonna flirt back. How'd you know I spent all my money, starved, and nearly died in a swamp just so I could crawl into bed with the first thirsty monster I saw? That earns me a burst of breathy laughter. He gazes at me under his dark lashes. Aren't you funny? Could you be any more obvious? I have been told words. Subtlety is not my strength. So, your place or mine? Oh, let's see. I'd invite you if I had my key. I'll pass. Let's continue with the flirting. If I only had my key, then I might be able to invite you up. His languid gaze glides from me to the key in his hand and back. Come, take my hand, and we'll go together. The more he flirts, the more convinced I become that this is some kind of trap. No matter how innocent monsters look, they always have tricks up their sleeves. And something tells me that this one's more dangerous than he lets on, even if he has a lovely laugh. I don't know what you want, or why you're messing with me, but I'm not coming any closer until I know you aren't going to attack or bite. I won't bite hard unless you beg me. No matter what I say, he finds a way to twist my words into innuendo. Even when I'm silent, he goes on as though we're having a conversation, not a standoff. Do you like dancing? There's a traveling troupe performing in Hightown tonight. Their lutist is utterly exquisite, truly a performance to die for. There's life in this dreadful place, if you know where to look. You sound like you know the city well. The man's gaze flickers from me to the key dangling from his finger. Naturally, this dump was little more than a miserable little smear when I first arrived. Hightown, Lowtown, I know Eridia like the back of my hand. What about the cenobium? Do you know where it is? His smile vanishes. Surely you've seen it. That absurdly large tower looming over the rest. It's a little hard to miss. He must mean that spire I noticed when I first caught sight of Eridia. The cenobium's overrated. Forget about it. I can show you things a stuffy boars in their limp dick tower couldn't even dream of. I've already got plans. Oh? Have you some pressing matter at the cenobium? Lunch date with librarians? Tea time with the most esteemed abbotess? That's my business. What's it matter to you? I square my shoulders and the amusement bleeds out of him. Your loss. The stranger, finally bored of his tedious games, extends his hand toward me. The key rests on his palm, neatly dividing skin and leather. When he makes no other move, I reach for the key, but as soon as my fingers graze smooth brass, his hand springs shut around my elbow. Hey! He yanks me down and I stagger, my stool slipping on the steps. For a sick moment, I fear my bandages will unravel under his touch, but he's careful not to disturb them, even as his fingers dig into my arm. I knew I smelled blood. You reek of death and the road. And that freaking doctor. His voice, once silken, lowers to a smoky growl. The shadows around him seethe and boil as he pulls me closer. And something else. He murmurs against my throat, nose grazing my light jaw. Let go! I try to twist away, but he doesn't budge. His breath trails down my neck, sending a thrill of dread through me. But just when I fear he'll bite, he takes a deep whiff instead. His wide, flat eyes gleam with naked hunger as he gazes up at me. Not quite human, not quite monster. Seems we're both. Veer! The stranger's ears flatten and he releases me with a short breath. I yank my arm back, massaging it where his grip left grooves in the bandages. The stranger twists around to watch a woman duck out from the curtains behind him. Her pressed uniform bears the insignia of the cenobium. I leave you alone for what? For all of what? 10 minutes? And you're making trouble again. Will you quit harassing the tourists? The stranger, Veer, I take it, rolls his eyes and flashes the cleric a withering smile. So suspicious. Can't you see this is a friend of mine? A natural liar, he grins at me and his tail swishes minutely. The woman purses her lips at me, clearly unconvinced. I open my mouth to correct him, but Veer cuts in. I was graciously offering my dear friend some free advice. Though his voice remains light and cheerful, his expression darkens. Danger's drawn to you like a moth to a flame. It will always find you given time. The woman clucks her tongue as though she's heard this recital 102 times. A word of advice. Don't take free advice from lazy foxes lounging in the streets. This crook could sell water to a drowning man for the sheer enjoyment of it. She shrugs off a wilting look from Veer. Oh, please. Any friend of yours knows it's true. Now hold still. Veer rises gracefully at her approach. He pushes his hair aside so it drapes over one shoulder, exposing the long line of his neck. And suddenly it dawns on me that the jingling I heard earlier wasn't coming from the harness attached to his collar, but a leash. A heavy iron chain wound around a hitching pole, and a padlock to the back of his collar. Veer posed deliberately to hide his leash from me. The woman produces a key ring from her pocket and rifles through a dozen identical keys before selecting one and slotting it into the lock. Come on, unless your friend is tagging along on our merely soulless hunt. They're hunting soulless inside the city? Words momentarily fail me. The woman regards me with a polite, if tight, smile before marching down the stairs. Veer lingers. He stretches his arms over his head with a yawn. I try not to stare at the way his stomach flattens when he arches his back. Your little secret's safe with me. Try not to get yourself killed, Veer hops off the stoop and bounds after the woman. His tail sways merrily, as though he hadn't just lied and threatened me. Did you try that thing I mentioned? The Leviathan knot? That's the one where you take 3 fingers and... Actually, don't tell me. Knowing you, it's disgusting. Veer airily laughs. Laughter echoes down the street. It's only after he and the cleric have vanished from sight that I realize I'm still missing something. Wait! Reflexively, I shove my hand in my pocket and find it. The room key. I use the key from my pocket and smooth my thumb over his teeth as I try to recall a touch, a tell, a hint, or any hint of Veer's sleight of hand, but I can't figure out how he did it. All I know for certain is that the Cenobium saw fit to leash him. A fate I could share, if that's what his vague warning meant. I let my eyes drift skyward, past the lanterns gently swaying in the breeze to the Cenobium faintly visible through the haze. Just one glimpse is all I need. Then I can put all of this behind me. This time the key goes into my coin purse for safekeeping. It's easy enough to follow the sluggish river that splits Eridia in two. A colossal bridge arches over the dark waters below. I cross as quick as I can, climbing ever uphill towards the distant tower. Hours later, legs aching, sweat beating my forehead, I finally find what I was searching for. The Cenobium of the Limious Void. Wow, that's a mouthful. It stands at the highest point of Eridia, surrounded by cold white walls. Well-dressed people stroll down the walkways, paying no attention to the massive tower in their midst. I'm the only one standing before the gates. I crane my neck up and up until the top of the Cenobium tower disappears into the clouds overhead. I frown up at the gates, wondering what horrible traps they may contain. Despite their delicate beauty, there must be more to them than meets the eye. Knocking seems like a terrible idea, but I don't see any other way of making my presence known. I'm halfway up the steps when something moves into my peripheral vision. A shadowy figure crouches beneath one of the white walls. They reach out and tug on a vine as if testing its strength. Oi, you there! The shadow vanishes as quickly as I spotted it. A gaunt-faced man in a crisp charcoal uniform marches up the steps towards me. Ugh, another tourist. Get out of here once you're done gawking. A dismissing wave accompanies his equally dismissive words, and he turns on his heel without even waiting for an answer from me. I look back at where I saw the intruder, but there's nothing, just the leaves blowing gently in a cool breeze. I step away from the gates, hopelessness washing over me. Hello? A whisper, so close I can feel the warm brush of breath on my skin. I instinctively jerk away, but there's no one beside me. Halfway down the staircase, I spot a woman swaying in the breeze. She's gaunt as a rail, her blouse moth-eaten. I'm unable to take my eyes off her, not because of the way she smiles a little too widely, or the way her tousle braids look unbrushed for days, but because her eyes shine with a vibrant, unnatural crimson. I'm both entranced and unsettled by their subtle glow. These days, you need a miracle to get in there. I'm unsure how to respond, or even if I should. We're totally going to respond sarcastically, because that's how we do things. It seems like I'm in the market for a miracle. Know anyone selling? She beams at me like I said the greatest thing she's ever heard. Lucky for you, I have them for free. Whatever she's selling, I'm not interested. My words come out in a tired breath. No thanks. I start down the stairs, but she abruptly steps into my path. She turns her back to me, and before I can react, she slips her fingers under the lacing of her collar, stripping out of her blouse in broad daylight. What are you... As the worn fabric unveils bare skin, my panic smothered by cold horror. A misshapen, sunken scar carved into the woman's body. Pitted, gnarled skin snakes down her shoulders, blooming from a gaping hole in the back of her neck. A shuddering breath escapes me. Fuck. Whatever disease this woman had ate away at her from the inside out. How is she able to move or breathe? It's impossible. She shouldn't be alive, and yet the power to cure anything can be yours too. The power of the sea spring. The woman slides back into her blouse and deftly laces it up. If I've caught your interest, then follow me. It's only a short walk. Without another glance, she leisurely strolls down the cenobium stairs, loose braids bobbing behind her. The edge of her scar peeks out from under her collar. I stand there, wordless, until I manage to regain my bearings. It's a twisted miracle, but a miracle nonetheless. This could be the stupidest decision in my life, but what choice do I have? I take a final look at Cenobium's shut gates, then follow her down the steps. We descend from the higher streets, leaving behind the gilded decadence as we cross the river. The wet, derelict districts feels more familiar to me. But the crimson-eyed woman takes me further, then further still, until I'm met with an all too familiar sight. My gut lurches when I face the open horizon. The city's outskirts are hardly recognizable in daylight, and probably safer for it, but venturing beyond Eridia's walls is a gamble I wasn't prepared to take so soon. Keep going straight, and the sea spring will reveal itself to you. I bark out a bitter laugh, loud and involuntary. We're gonna ask if this is a setup. I have fallen for this already. Not that I'm proud of it, but I know a setup when I see one. I barely have enough coin for a meal, for what it's worth. If I wanted your coin, I would have already had it. She says it so lightly I almost believe her, even though she looks as physically capable as a toothpick. Here is safe inside the city as outside it. Truthfully, the territory before you is the safest of all. What do you mean, territory? This region belongs to Ace. I suck at words, people. Asses? Most people know him as a gang leader, but he's much more than that. I squint against the empty wasteland. Only a fool or someone with nothing to lose would leave the city. Apparently I'm both. But if this sea spring cured her, I need to see what it can do for me. I set off into the waste. Over my shoulder, the woman calls after me. Good luck, Jinx. I hope we meet again. My heart pounds with each step I take from civilization. I don't think we told her our name. How does she know our name? For what seems like an eternity, I force each foot forward, one step, then another, until realization hits me. I never told the woman my name. Now you realize it. Okay. Something pierces the horizon ahead of me. A building nestled into a tall cliffside, but so starkly out of place it might as well be a hallucination. It drips with extravagance and honeyed mahogany, an ornate jewel of architecture. A row of dark silhouettes stand out on the horizon, trees, I think, until I'm close enough to realize that what I mistook for branches were spikes and jutting tendrils. Soulless, several of them watch me in the distance like statues. I don't think, I just run, exploding into a messy sprint. I push my legs as fast as they'll take me towards the decorated building. Flashes of last night's chase, the gushes of blood and screams of death, the smell of burning flesh and sour bile. I can't go through that again. I won't. The next thing I know, I'm dashing up the wooden staircase and crashing through the towering double doors. I gasp for air, my lungs burning from exertion. I'm desperate to be safe, but when I process my surroundings, it's more hellscape than sanctuary. Blood flows all around me, overwhelming my vision with a lurid, unholy red. Instinctively, my hand leaps to my mouth. But the rotten stench of blood never comes. Instead, a smoky scent hangs in the air, sharp and spiced. I swallow thickly, convincing myself that it's not as gruesome as it appears. This has to be the sea spring, the place that grants miracles. Pulling my eyes away from the pool, I take in the rest of my environment. Tall pillars flank me, blanketed in written notes. Seating pillows scatter the floor. A rustic kettle sits nearby. Someone must live here, despite how eerily empty it is. Let's call out. Hello? Is anyone here? My voice echoes across the cavern without response. I approach the paper-covered pillars. Maybe something here can tell me more. I reach for... let's just go with the closest one. I reach for a note in front of me. It reads, "Dearest Mother, don't cry for me. I'm sorry I didn't say goodbye, but we'll meet again in another life. I love you very much. From Iris. P.S. If you ever see me, never speak to me again." It's written in perfect cursive. I've never seen such beautiful handwriting. Before I can ponder it further, a sharp chill runs down my spine. Something's watching me. I quickly set the note back, my eyes darting around the wooden deck, but it's still empty, vacant. Finally, I look towards the sea spring. That stillness hides something deeper, something wrong. Hey! I spin around and come face to face with a pack of soulless. Their chitter and growl, tendrils and spikes flare threateningly, all different sizes and species, but sharing one identical trait, glowing crimson eyes. I try to back away, but my heel teeters over the sea spring. I'm cornered. Watch your step. It's deeper than it looks. That voice again. At the sound of it, the souls freeze, their snarls quieting. I search for the voice's source, and find it above me, lounging in the rafters. You look lost, little sparrow. His gaze is violent crimson, one that sears through me, leaving me feel raw and exposed. They're the same eyes I've seen over and over, first with the scarred woman, now with the soul circling me, all bound by the sea springs, blood red. In the shroud of darkness behind him, shapes like a massive tentacle twist and coil around the wooden beams. I can't focus. The soulless growls ring in my ear. They're not advancing, but they could change at any second. Panic rises in my throat as I struggle to track them. Hey! Eyes on me. My stomach rolls as I tear my eyes away from the soulless. Don't ignore someone who's talking to you. It's not polite. For a moment, anger knocks my fear aside. Who is this bastard? Ooh. We're sassy. I look right into his unnerving eyes, holding his gaze defiantly. Frick you. Is that better? No, it's not, because I didn't say the actual word. A crooked grin cracks across his face. We'll work on it. I scan the soulless again. They really aren't attacking, posturing more than anything else, almost as if they're waiting for commands. Did you tame them? Power of the sea spring. They're hungry, so they might bite you. You could give me a reason to stop them. How about I didn't do anything wrong? Trespassing. And that's punishable by death? He gives a non-committal shrug. I called out earlier to see if anyone was here. Where were we supposed to play hide and seek? Didn't hear you. My voice stopped in my throat. The man's terse coolness is both infuriating and terrifying. I rack my brain for some way to diffuse the situation. Let's go with tell me what you want. Tell me what you want. I'm not in the mood for guessing games. Your hands. Alarm jolts through me. I hide my hands under my cloak. Show me. Why? Won't ask twice. With a sharp huff, I reluctantly hold out my bandaged hands. Are you getting off on this? Unwrap them. Heat rushes to my face and fire to my tongue. I should give him a piece of my mind, but not when his soulless are one command from ripping me to shreds. Yet no matter how much I tell myself to move, my body's frozen in place. I stand there for a long, agonizing minute. My hands are trembling when I finally raise them. I know the skin beneath, the wrappings all too well, the hideous, unnatural flesh I've grown to despise. I grip the edges of the bandages. Stop. With a weary sigh, the man slides off the beam and lands with a thud that shakes the panels underfoot. He's a monster, with an imposing figure that towers over me. I couldn't tell how tall he was before, but he's big. Illuminated by the lantern light, his features are stronger, sharper. Subtle clinks of metal accompany each footstep. The closer he gets to me, the faster my heart hitches. What does he want? Is he going to kill me? I take a step backwards and find nothing to set my foot on. I'd forgotten my back was to the sea spring. I fall right before a warm hand catches my lower back. I'm hovering above the sea spring, the scent of smoke and leather enveloping me. Blazing crimson eyes bore into mine. I told you to watch your step. I'm too stunned to muster a response. Like I weigh nothing, he guides me back to solid ground and steps back. Following a subtle gesture from his fingers, the soulless look around him. Following a subtle gesture gesture from his fingers, the soulless around us disperse and relax. The shift in their demeanor is so abrupt it gives me whiplash. The enormous tentacles are no longer in the rafters, though now I doubt I ever saw them at all. Either way, I exhale a breath of relief. Thanks. As focused on me as he was before, the monster pays no attention to me now. He kicks some seating pillows out of the walkway, checks the contents of the kettle with a scowl. The sudden disregard is almost insulting. So that's it? I'm not a threat anymore? Never were one. Then why did you threaten me? People get honest when they're afraid. In other words, he was messing with me. I drag a hand over my face, exhausted by the fact that this is the second time a monster has provoked me today. You're Asus, aren't you? Depends on who's asking. One of your friends told me this was your territory. She also said that you were a gang leader, but there's no one else here. I thought there'd be more people. Ace picks up the kettle and walks to the edge of the sea spring, then dumps out the contents into the endless red. Gang took a walk. His pleasant smile stretches across his face, ear to ear. Then in an instant it drops. I get the sense that I shouldn't ask about his gang again. Something must have happened. I've learned to recognize a real leader when I see one. Asus regrettably fits the type perfectly. He knows how to scare people. He expects submission. But it's uncommon for someone so used to being in power to be so alone. What do you need the sea spring's powers for? Depends. Can it cure a curse? Probably. You mean you don't know? Nope. He shakes out the empty kettle and starts collecting stray cups, tidying up. My frustration builds. I narrow my eyes at him in a questioning glare. When he notices, he returns it with an amused smirk. Are you being irritating on purpose? Listen, Sparrow, the sea spring can cure anything. Nothing's stopping you from trying it yourself. What do I have to do? Drink. I have to drink from the sea spring? My eyes glide to the blood-like pool beside us. The idea of ingesting the strange liquid makes my guts churn. Is there a price? Always. Asus taps his temple with a finger. You lose a little bit. That's it? Might have already beat it to the punch. My humor earns me an amused fang grin. This is a little different. When you drink from the sea spring, you forget who you are. Your mind combines with everyone who ever drank before. Humans, monsters, soulless. One big happy family in your head. My blood runs cold. I've heard of these before. Group minds. I thought they were just rumors. I've heard whispers of cults performing rituals to bind their members' minds together, but it never seemed possible. But something tells me this is real, even if one thing doesn't add up. Your eyes are red too, but you obviously haven't forgotten who you are. Before I can finish my sentence, Ada strides past me towards the entrance. Time's up. Let's finish this later. Wait, already? You barely told me anything. Come on, a bad day. I've got somewhere to be. There are still so many questions burning on the tip of my tongue, but my frustration spills before any of them. I was told to come here for help, but instead I get threatened and kicked out. You're joking, right? Watch your tone. I'm nice, but don't want to ruin the host's mood. My skin prickles. The feeling of being watched washes over me again. My eyes dart back over to the sea spring. A lone ripple dances on the quiet surface. I take Ace's advice and clamp my mouth shut. I approached a nearby soulless, a lanky, dog-like one with 6 legs and a crown of tentacles. Several sets of crimson eyes adorn its side. Its forked tail wags rapidly as Asa squats beside it. He runs his finger through its tendrils, scratches its chin, and pats its head. A gentle smile plays across Asa's lips. The affection he holds for the soulless is painfully clear. I dip my eyes away, my stomach fluttering at the tender sight. It's getting dark out, so this pretty girl will guide you back. Following a short whistle from Asa, it trops over to the entrance obediently and tail swaying. I watch the soulless warily. Pretty is not a word I would use to describe it, and the idea of its protecting me sounds absurd. If I decide to drink, how should I find you? Find someone with eyes like mine, and they'll point you in the right direction. But think it over. Once you drink, you can't go back. It's a lot to process, but I give a small nod. At least I know I have another option for a cure, as disturbing as it may be. I follow the soulless at a measured distance and watch it nudge the giant doors open with ease. I'm about to cross the threshold. I sneak one last glimpse behind me. My heart skips when I meet Isa's eyes. I'm about to snap my head away, but he just flashes me an easy smile. Till next time, Sparrow. I'll buy you a drink for scaring you. I don't trust myself to do anything but respond with another curt nod. Oh, you have a pet name. Outside, more crimson-eyed soulless scuttle about. It's hard to believe it's the same threatening pack from before. They chase each other in circles, rolling around in the bog's mud. They pay no attention to me as the dog-like one escorts me away. It's an uneventful trip. Sometimes the soulless looks over its shoulder at me to make sure I'm still following. Dusk darkens the sky by the time we reach the city. The soulless sits and looks at me expectantly with familiar crimson eyes. Oh, we're totally gonna pet it. Yep, we're gonna pet the... Yep. As nervous as I am, I carefully glide my fingers through the soulless's tendrils and scratch beneath its chin just like Ace's had. It pushes into my palm in response, rumbling with a sound akin to a purr. The vibrations are soothing, almost healing my fatigue. When it's satisfied, the soulless spins around and scampers back in the direction we came, vanishing into the darkness. It's barely my first day in Eridia, and I've already encountered so many things I thought were impossible, tame soulless being one of them. My head spins. Maybe I should call it a day. Nightfall creeps across the streets of Eridia. The city, labyrinthine even in the daytime, has become a warren of treacherous alleys. The streets are completely deserted. If I hadn't been here earlier, I would have thought this part of the city abandoned. I make my way through the winding streets, doing my best to keep my bearings towards the wet wick. My steps slow, and I hear a rustle in the dark. I strain my ears, but everything is still. Is the silence playing tricks on me? And we're gonna go with something's wrong. And we're supposed to be all like street smart, right? The fine hairs on the back of my neck prickle, a vision of discomfort running down my spine. Something's wrong. My eyes dart from one side of the street to the other, searching for movement, but the shadows are deep and dark as pools of ink, and I see nothing. I can't stay here. I need to reach a busier part of the city. Drawing my cloak tighter around my body, I hurry on my way. Though I keep my eyes sharp and listen intently, there's only the sound of my own footsteps. As the moments pass and nothing happens, I begin to wonder. Maybe I really did imagine that noise. I turn the next corner and my thoughts come to a screaming halt. My head spins and the world blurring as adrenaline rushes through my veins. Only one thing is clear amidst the haze. The soulless that attacked the caravan. It's crouched over a dark, indistinct shape, a body. A garland of intestines spills from pallid flesh, blood, goats, the cobblestones. For a mercy, the soulless is too distracted by its meal to have noticed me. My feet feel heavy as stones, but I can't just stand here. Holding my breath, I take a step back. When the wet, slurping sounds don't abate, I take another. Then a shard of glass crunches under my heel. The world seems slow to a crawl as the soulless raises its head, blood dripping from its tendrils, every single one of its bulging eyes fixed unblinkingly on me. It's really here. It's come back for me. Oh, I only got one option. I'm off like a shot, running for my life through the darkened streets. Behind me, a piercing bass splits the silence, and heavy footfalls pound after me. My heart thunders in my chest. I take turns at random, trying to lose it in the maze of streets, but I can't seem to shake it. I can hear its breathing now, a wet, flutteringly rasp, growing closer and closer. The same claws that severed my arm swipe out. I duck, saved by pure reflex, and skid around a corner. I take 3 running strides before the bottom drops out of my stomach. A wall twice as high as me bars my way, a dead end. When I turn around, the soulless looms in the entry to the alleyway. It's no longer running, it doesn't have to. As it prowls closer, my thoughts race. Some of the buildings lining the street are lit. There must be people inside. It's a long shot, but I'm going to say that screaming for help isn't going to do any good because these people do not seem like the helpful type around here. So we're going to try the nearest door. I whirl, grabbing at the handle of the closest door. It turns completely. The hinges creak as I push, and I feel a flash of hope before weight hits the door from the other side and it slams shut. The click of the lock turning is a grimy The click of the lock turning is grimly final. In this wretched world, few people would stick their necks out to help their own, flesh and blood, never mind a stranger. See, told you. The soulless gives a rasping hiss. It's the only warning I get before it lunges for me with a flash of claws. I hurl myself to the side, but the slick cobblestones betray me. I fall, sprawling over the rough stone. As the soulless looms over me, I scramble away from it until my back hits the wall. There's nowhere left to go. It descends on me for the kill. But the impact never comes. I warily crack one eye open, then the other, not sure whether I should believe what I'm seeing. A hooded figure crouches in front of me, one blood-stained hand outstretched. Moonlight silvers the edge of their stiletto knife. Their face and hands are splattered with blood. And the soulless? My eyes dart past my unexpected rescuer to the misshapen form behind them. The soulless's many eyes, once restless and vibrant, now look dull and waxy. A red pool spreads slowly from under their body. Numb with shock, I can't help but stare. It's dead. After all the people it's killed, after nearly killing me twice. I can't believe it. Well, I gingerly take the offered hand. The stranger's gaze dips to my bandages. Pale lips part on the brink of a question, and then close again. With a strength belaying their slight frame, they pull me to my feet. As soon as I'm on my own 2 feet again, they pull away from me and start wiping the blood from their face and hands. Stay there. They turn away from me stiffly, leaning over the soulless's gangly body. With their back towards me, I realized that I saw their hooded silhouette at the cenobium. Let's go with the obvious. You saved me. I shouldn't have had to. Their harsh response takes me aback. Before I can formulate a response, they continue. What are you thinking, traveling alone at night? This is far from the worst thing haunting Lowtown. I can't make heads or tails of them. First they save me, and now they scold me. Lesson learned. I could do without the lecture, though. To my surprise, they break eye contact. Their attention glides back to the Soulless's corpse. They examine it with an inscrutable expression. I clear my throat to fill the silence. I'm Jinx. Min. Suddenly Min tenses. Their blade flashes as they drive into the back of the Soulless's neck. The Soulless thrashes once, letting out a rattling hiss as the air leaves its lungs. Min leans on the blade, driving it deeper and deeper until there's a sickening crunch, and the creature goes limp. My heart thuds in my chest. It must have been clinging to life by a thread. Min straightens up, withdrawing their blade in a single smooth motion. Better to put wretched things like this out of their misery. They calmly clean the blood from their knife. That swift, unhesitating lethal strike wasn't the work of an amateur. But they don't act like any cold-blooded killers I've seen in the past. Why is the Soulless in the city? Min looks at me, eyes searching before realization dawns. You're new here. There's no walls around the city. Soulless can come and go as they please until someone is contracted to stop them. The Cenobian patrols don't bother to protect Lowtown. Not anymore. Let me guess, you're not a fan of the Cenobium. I wouldn't go that far. Their brows abruptly furrow, and they sheath their knife, motioning for me to follow them. It's not safe here. The vultures can smell death. I'm not quite sure what they mean, but I don't want to stay lost in the city. I trail behind them as they stride down the street. If it's so dangerous, then why are you helping me? I came for the bounty on that Soulless, and you were in the way. Not killing you isn't the same as helping you. Don't count on being so lucky again, or you'll be dead by sunrise. Their answer is stingingly harsh. Let's go with sarcasm. We fall back on that. Fed up, I don't bother holding back anymore. Fine. I don't know why you dive in out of nowhere to kill some dangerous Soulless, then be rude to the person you help, but go ahead. Min blinks, staring at me like my head just spun around on my neck. They open their mouths and then close it, looking uncertain. I forge onward, gathering steam. How was I supposed to know there'd be dangerous Soulless hunting in the streets? You don't have to be an asshole about it. You're not as spineless as you look. Jinx. I turn, surprised by the voice. Cross walks down the street towards us. His white and gold clothing is pristine despite the grime of the city. Hello, Min. I see that Soulless was your work. Min shrugs. There's a familiarity to the way they regard each other. Let's stick with the one we know. You know them, Karas? Min is a freelancer who has done a few errands for me. They're quite reliable. Unreliable freelancers don't eat. There's something Karas isn't saying here. Jinx needs to get back to wherever she's staying before she wanders into the jaws of another Soulless. It's late. Were you able to find a place to stay, Jinx? I'm staying at the Wetwick. Both their faces fall. I see. Would you like a guide? It might be preferable to wandering around alleyways. That would be nice. Min clicks her tongue and sighs, sounding mightily put out. Going to the Amaryllis district? That gaudy cesspit? Come, this way. Despite Min's clear distaste, when Karas leads me down the street, they keep pace with us. Catching my curious glance, Min's eyes narrow. It's not safe this late. I don't care about you, but Cross is the only doctor worth a damn in this place. Are you like this with everyone? The deadpan look Min gives me is answer enough. I catch Cross hiding a slight smile. I suppress a sigh and resign myself to having a grumpy shadow all the way back to the Wetwick. The route Cross takes is completely different from my slow meandering earlier in the morning. In no time at all, he cuts through the darkened streets and twisting alleys. It seems like half the city is poured into the Amaryllis district's colorful streets. Laughter, clinking glasses, and music assault my ears from every direction. Yet the most noise still comes from the Wetwick. Its doors hang wide open, lanterns lit. Here we are. He moves to the door and Min lets out an audible huff. Don't tell me you're going in. I have some quick business with Leander. Ugh, fine. He still owes me for yesterday's work. They drag their feet, reluctantly trailing me into the tavern. As soon as the doors open, a wave of sticky heat rolls over me. In the hours since I left, the wick has grown suffocatingly crowded. Cross stands out, easily a head taller than most. Even so, I nearly lose sight of him amidst the sea of swarming bodies. Pardon me. The crowd parts as though answering his request. Cross glances over his shoulder at Min and me before gliding through. How can anyone breathe in here? Min follows Cross at a clip pace. Leander's right where I left him, although he's traded places with the bartender. He holds a pair of shot glass filled to the brim with a luminous green liquid. And now for the finishing touch. A flash of magic paints the glasses white with frost. You're never going to guess what's in these. Leander slides the glasses across the bar, and I get my third and fourth shocks of the evening in rapid succession. Ace leans against the bar, an elbow propped up on the counter. He catches the glass and lifts one to the light before turning it upside down. The contents magically congeal to stay firmly in place. You're supposed to make drinks, pretty boy. Don't tell me you're wasted already. Veer, perched on the bar's counter beside Aces, takes a single look at the shot glass and shakes his head. What have we here? A bucket full of boogers? Leander's nose treasure? You've eaten worse. Veer's lips twist and his ears flatten when Aces offers him a glass. He turns his cheek with a sniff, and Aces just snickers. Coward. Don't tell me you're actually... In one fluid motion, Ace throws his head back and downs the shot. Drinking that. A dark look crosses Ace's face. It's chewy. Chewy. Wait, let me try again. Behind me, Min grumbles. I told you this place was a nest of degenerates. If it isn't Cross and Min. At the sound of Leander's voice, Min Pale's eyes grow wide. They look ready to bolt until Cross sets a hand on their shoulder. I promise this will not take long. Min's eyes dart from Cross's hand to his face, then soften. Fine, you first. While they step forward, I linger behind, struck by a sudden revelation. All of the people I've met today know each other. Good evening, Leander. Isis. Another drinking competition, I presume. Oh, is it evening already? I could have sworn it was earlier. Just some friendly rivalry, Doctor. Nothing to be afraid of. Cross acknowledges Leander and Isis with the slightest nod, ignoring Veer entirely. Not that Veer seems to mind. He tilts his head and an impish smile curves his lips when he spots Min looming silently behind Karas. I almost didn't see you there, Min. Looking for your booster seat? Min pushes back their hood. They level Veer with a cool look. I thought Asus wasn't allowed to bring his pets in here. Veer's tail gives an angry twitch. At the first sign of an impending fight, Leander vaults clear over the counter and slides in between Asus and Karas. No. Let's try and keep the peace. It's not every day the esteemed doctor takes us up on a drink. His arm sneaks around Karas's shoulder. You were finally taking me up on that drink, right, Karas? I'm afraid not. We are merely escorting Jinx back to her lodging. Cross-dressers in my direction and my stomach sinks. I reluctantly step into the light. As soon as he sees me, Leander's face brightens. Jinx, it's been too long. Everyone, this is Jinx. She's new to Eridia. I feel 5 pairs of eyes fix on me, and suddenly the bar feels suffocatingly small. My voice nearly catches in my throat. Let's go with the obvious. Actually, I've already met everyone. You've already met? Aces and Veer level me with a subtly... Ugh, guys, words. With a subtle, amused expression. Veer's tail gives a lazy wag. We did. Not all that long ago, either. I'm starting to suspect she's stalking me. He looks far too pleased with himself when I roll my eyes. This calls for drinks. What does everyone want? In an instant, all eyes turn to Leander, freeing me from the burden of attention. But for the first time since I undertook the journey to Eridia, I feel a faint glimmer of hope. I think, no, I know, I was meant to meet them. The low, pleasant rumble of Leander's laughter pulls me from my restless thoughts. Ha! Will color me surprised. You make friends fast, Jinx. I wouldn't go that far. We're more like acquaintances. A wise man once said that acquaintances are merely friends you haven't shared a drink with yet. A wise man? You said that here last week. I can hear Min's lip curl with distaste from across the bar. Leander clears his throat and continues undeterred. Let's toast to Jinx's health. Care to join in, Doctor? Cross politely declines with a wave of his hand. How about you, Min? No. Are you? No. A resounding pop pierces the din of the bar. We all turn in the direction of the noise. Veer looks almost bashful as he accepts an overflowing flute from the bartender, poured from a bottle so old its label has been worn blank. They serve champagne here? Since when? Veer pauses in the middle of licking champagne foam from his fingers with a coy smile. You don't mind, do you? In a transformation that's impressive as his magic trick, the concern on Leander's face vanishes. He laughs softly. No, be my guest. I know you've got expensive tastes. Haha. Then he shoots the bartender a frantic look. Unbothered or uninterested in his company, Asus cants his head at me, a light smile on his lips. How about you, Sparrow? I did say I'd buy you a drink. No, my treat. Asus regards Leander over the lip of his glass. In the dim light, the glint in his crimson eyes looks downright dangerous. What'll it be, Jinx? After the day we've had, we're getting a drink. I'll take you up on that drink, as long as it's not one of those green shots. Don't knock them till you've tried them. They taste better than they look. Somehow I doubt that, but I hold my tongue long enough for Leander to go behind the bar. He's lying, isn't he? When I glance at Asus, he only shrugs. Like I said, they were chewy, probably poison too. He considers his own drink a tumbler of amber-colored whiskey. Leander tried to kill me 12 times by now. It's always a gamble. Veer clicks his tongue in disapproval. When he finally looks my way, it's with a half-lidded gaze softened by his third glass of champagne. Were I you, I wouldn't let Leander put anything in my mouth. He fans his fingers over his chest, voice dripping with fake reverence. The Wetwick is one of the finest drinking establishments in all of Eridia. While you're here, you might as well partake of its signature watered-down drinks and stale nut leather. He sweeps his hand toward a chipped ceramic bowl filled with spindly, speckled jerky that I can only assume is nut leather. What is it with the food in this city? As abysmal as you make it sound, this place is completely packed. It's not all bad. Depending on the day, the food's edible. Asus takes a measured sip of his drink. Gotta stick around for the real attractions, though. Before I can ask what he means, Leander returns with a tumbler that he sets in front of me. Uneven chunks of ice bob in a pool of reddish-purple alcohol. I sniff the drink suspiciously. To my relief, this time all I smell is the sharp, clean scent of gin with an undercurrent of fermented fruit. Ew, gin. No, not good. Gin's not good. Relax, it's just a local speciality. Plum gin. Although if you're feeling more adventurous. I shake my head. Leander raps his knuckles against the bar until the group falls silent. Alright, everyone, let's toast. May Jinx stay in Eridia be full of bright adventures and discoveries. Cheers. Leander, Asus, and Veer raise their glasses in union. Min only crosses their arms and cross-watches with polite indifference. I tip back my drink. The plum gin is eye-wateringly strong. Despite a sharp medicinal edge, it goes down smooth. No. One sip softens the edges of my vision. The next fades the din of the crowded bar into a low, persistent murmur. I find myself unwinding for what feels like the first time in years. Aren't you the popular one, Jinx? I'm guessing you met Cross first. It would be more accurate to say that I found her. He saved my life. I merely performed my duty as a doctor. Although I must admit, I was confused when I woke up missing all my clothes. Leander makes a choking noise. Somewhere behind him, Min sighs. It's not what you think. Jinx was in grave condition. I could hardly treat her injuries through tattered clothes. The silence that follows stretches uncomfortably long. I look away, unable to face Cross's disappointment and catch Veer snickering behind his hand. That's my cue to change the topic. Cross isn't the only one who saved me today. Don't you listen? I didn't save you. You were simply there. That's Min for you. Leander reaches for Min, but they duck under his arm with practiced ease, without so much as looking his way. As reliable as they are moody. You're one to talk, considering you neglected to warn her to stay off the streets at night. Oh, I might have gotten a little distracted. Min's only response is a short breath. At any rate, I never got a chance to thank you, Min. Don't. The less soulless alive, the better. For a heartbeat, Ming's eyes flicker toward Asus and their lips twist. Asus is too busy nodding along with Veer's enthusiastic pantomime of stabbing to notice, lost, no doubt, in an enthralling discussion. I've had enough of this hellhole. Let's go. Min and Cross share a brief look, then the doctor speaks up. Very well, but there's something I must discuss with Leander, if you'll excuse us, Jinx. And just like that, the three of them depart, leaving me alone to savor my gin in silence. Or so I think, until I hear a voice so soft and low it's practically a purr. Lost your tour guide? I turned to find crimson and pink eyes trained on me. It's not lost on me that they chose the instant the others left to strike. Just my luck. I had to be abandoned with the two most irritating people I've met all day. Monsters or not, there's no telling what I'll do if either of them pushes me again. Don't tell me Leander already snuck off to get his knob slobbered out back. He's got business with Karas and Min. 2-on-1 business, isn't he lucky? I can't tell if it's the champagne or the company, but Veer has grown noticeably more relaxed. He sits with his chin propped on the back of his hand. His ears twitch whenever a hiccup shakes his shoulders. Why are you so far away? Come, join us. He pats the empty bar stool between aces, but I hesitate. The smile Veer wears is sweet and distinctly sly, and with the drinks in the mix, I dread how he and Aces will mess with me next. We don't bite. I'm not sure about that. Just hours ago, he tried to rob me and you threatened me. Me? Steal? Surely you must be mistaken. You sure that was me? Yes, it was you, and then you had the gall to kick me out just so you could go drinking. He gives another one of his shrugs. I was lonely. A simpler answer than I expected, but I guess I can't fault him for that. Veer suddenly slumps forward, gossamer sleeves pooling where he rests his elbows on his knees. Asa sets a hand on Veer's waist, narrowly preventing him from tipping off the counter. How about we start fresh, Begin with proper introductions, get off on a right foot and whatnot. I'll start. Name's Veer, hunter extraordinaire. Veer's right hand flutters to his chest and he bows his head, flinching when his hair falls onto his eyes. Aces doesn't say anything, so I suppose it's my turn now. Well, it's just... I'm certain you already know my name. Hard not to, with Leander shouting it every other second. Veer tips back his head and drains the rest of his champagne. It's a pleasure to formally meet you, Jinx. He says my name slowly and deliberately, savoring every syllable. A tingle jumps down my spine, and I quickly turn my gaze away. Aces smirks at my reaction over the rim of his glass. Something funny? Nope. I open my mouth and close it just as quickly. They want me to react, goading me to another ridiculous game. While their sharp cat-like eyes keep me on edge, something about this tension is fun. It must be the gin. A flash of white over Ace's shoulder catches my eye. Across the bar, Cross heads for the door. I don't see Leander or Min, but it feels wrong to let him leave without saying goodbye. I'll be back. Veer hums and wags his finger at me as I leave. I slip through the crowd, careful not to touch anyone, but just as I'm nearing Karas... I stagger, shoulder checked by a man with a neck thicker than both my thighs. He stares down at me, nostrils flaring. Out of my way, shit stain. My words spill out on their own. You watch it. I regret them as soon as they leave my mouth. That fucking gin. The roughneck wheels around, shoving a bloodhound out of the way so he can close in on me. What did you say? He shoves me backwards, sending me stumbling to the sticky floor. I'm fine, but my heart leaps to my throat when I see the roughneck bearing down on me. You trying to start something here? The roughneck freezes, his fists cocked back. A group of bloodhounds called by the commotion circle him, sizing him up. For what feels like an agonizingly long moment, the roughneck looks from me to the bloodhounds. Finally, he sniffs and spits on the floor next to me. The lob nearly misses my cheek. Screw it. Too many freaks in the circus tonight. He turns his back on me and comes face to face with Ace. A dangerous smile spreads across his face. You'll do. What happens next is a blur. Ace's fist crashes into the roughneck's jaw, causing an eruption of gas, shouts, and even cheers around us. I scramble to my feet, right as the frantic crowd swarms around me, cutting off my sight of everything and everyone. Through the ruckus, I hear Leander shouting, "Hey, Aces, take it outside!" Ignoring them, everyone. Ignore them, everyone. Look, drinks are on me. With those 4 words, the wiki erupts with hoots and hollers. The ring around me disperses as the bloodhounds and onlookers rush towards the bar. Through the thinning crowd, I catch glimpses of familiar faces. Aces vanishes out the back, dragging the roughneck behind him. Cross lingers near the door, searching, I suspect, for any wounded before he departs. Min draws her hood up tight as they slip out a side door. Vera leans over the counter to swipe a glass of wine from behind the bar. And Leander, seated at the opposite end of the bar, gestures dramatically and apologetically at the bartender. In the space of a heartbeat, I realize there's no telling when or if I'll see any of them ever again. Whoever I pursue may be the last person I get to speak to tonight. I follow... Oh, ow. So, here we go. Ow. Okay, so we have to decide who we're going to follow. We're going to go after Aces, who just took that guy out back to probably beat the crap out of him. Cross, who we don't... Min, who we really don't know. Veer, who's probably just going to sit there and get smashed. Leander, possibly the same. Let's follow the doctor. Our good doctor. Hot and cross as tears, I squeeze my way out of the bar. Of everyone I've met, he seems the most likely to help me, and the least likely to murder me on a whim. Earlier this morning, he said I could go to the clinic for help whenever I needed it. Time to see if that promise was actually worth anything. I breathe a sigh of relief once I'm free of the crowded bar. Cross, hearing me, turns my way. Jinx, you seem upset. I take it the Amaryllis district is not to your liking? I pause to think about that. It's not so different from the streets where I grew up, though the clientele is much more colorful. That's not why I stepped out. You are not in need of treatment after the fall, are you? I scowl up at him and he holds out a hand in a mollifying gesture. I apologize, Jinx. Please continue. About time. Someone cuts right across me towards Cross, stopping us both in the middle of the street. Even in the dim pink haze that seems to blanket everything, there's no mistaking the pressed white uniform and the stiffly starched hat. Another Cenobium cleric. I hastily step back, making myself as inconspicuous as possible. Can I help you? Nervous onlookers hastily part around Cross and the cleric. The two form an island of white in a sea of teeming color. Enough. You know why I'm here. Then I hope you'll find this edifying. Cross reaches into his coat and produces 3 tiny glass vials bound together with a thick leather cord. A silvery powder shimmers inside them. He gently flicks the glass, watching the contents swirl, and extends the vials to the cleric. This is it. They look extremely unimpressed. Appearances can be deceiving. He throws me a glance and a swift smile, but I'm too surprised to respond. Cross was the first to warn me about the Cenobium. Nobody I met had anything good to say about them. And yet here he is, openly dealing with them in the Amaryllis district. I glance between Cross and the cleric, who seems to notice me for the very first time. Good night. They bowed across and offer me an extremely perfunctory nod and disappear into the seething crowd. Jinx, is something amiss? Let's go with this one. Yeah, what was that all about? Lower your voice. It's of little consequence. That's all you have to say after the earful you gave me about the cenobium? You... Shh. Be calm. He holds up one finger to his lips, which suddenly curl into a cat-like smile. For now, please join me on a short stroll. Cross's golden eyes twinkle in the low light. He beckons me away from the main thoroughfare, down a side street filled with vendors hawking late-night snacks. Wait, what? Wait? Now, powerfully curious in spite of myself, I hurry after Cross. Each of his long, graceful strides is easily two of mine. I catch a glimpse of his gleaming white coat disappearing around the corner of the street. The moment I catch up with him, the delicious sense of freshly baked goods flush my nose. My stomach gives a loud rumble. 1 honey pistachio cookie, please. Coming right up. Without breaking his swift pace, Cross plucks the sticky confection out of the merchant's hand and offers it to me. The heavenly spell makes my stomach rumble once more. I take a bite without hesitation. Cross watches me with an indulgent smile. I notice he hasn't gotten anything for himself. You're not hungry? You need not concern yourself with me. He stops mid-sentence, his eyes darting back the way we came. The hairs stick up on the back of my neck, and I turn just enough to peek over my shoulder, hoping I don't look too suspicious. Sure enough, it's the same cleric who waylaid us in the street, now wearing a thunderously angry expression. Oh. Well, disappointment can be a learning experience. Glimmers of realization draw over me as I stare up at him. What exactly was in those vials? Perhaps a rare and potent alchemic catalyst? Or some stale fish skins. The two do resemble one another, and it can be hard to tell them apart. Is he serious? I chance another glance at the cleric, who is now trying to elbow their way between the food stalls. A few people make way, but most don't even notice their efforts. The street is far too crowded with hungry patrons. Shall we? Without even waiting for a response from me, he glides swiftly into the crowd once more. You're messing with the cenobium cleric? Such impolite behavior. I'm astounded you would even suggest it. Cross. I must still look incredulous because his smile softens a little. He lifts his hand as to pat my shoulder, and then stops himself. As I said, you have nothing to fear. He ducks into what looks like an abandoned doorway, but opens into a small covered market. The stalls here are full of more spices than I knew existed. Even taking a short breath makes me sneeze. Cross slows his pace, occasionally pausing to examine the insistent hawker's wares. Wait. He looks from a display of livid red leaves, each long as my forearm. You said I have nothing to fear, but everyone in Eridia seems wary of the cenobium. People fear the obvious trappings of power, wealth, force, or a hideously abstentious tower. For my part, I find such trappings merely disappointing. The cenobium once had great potential. They squandered it decades ago in the pursuit of trinkets, pleasure, and petty tyranny. Their narrow, prosaic interests have rendered them blind to all else that moves. I think that's the most I've ever heard Caress say on any topic. You sound like you know them well. Cross lets out a long, low sigh. You miss Little Jinx. Familiarity breeds contempt, and I'm more familiar with the cenobium's crude methods than I would like. Now I'm getting somewhere, something beyond vague warnings or a swift deflection. I decide to press the point while I have the chance. Familiar how? Cross stops right in the front of a display of pickled fruit, and I nearly run into his back. He steps aside at the last moment. His arm rests gently but firmly on my waist. I tense, but he's careful to avoid my bandaged hands. Our pursuers refuse to take no for an answer. Them again? I thought we'd lost them in the crowd. I crane my neck to look for the cleric, but Karas shakes his head. This way. The next street over seems to be home to the high-end brothels. It's full of steep stairways and shadowy passages, perfect for discreet trysts or losing a persistent tale. Pink curtains and painted facades sprawl around me like a giant, colorful warren. It only takes a few more twists and turns down blind alleys and narrow walkways before I'm completely turned around. Cross, however, seems to be following some map in his own mind. He takes each turn with swift confidence, guiding me with the occasional nudge. The gaps between teetering buildings can hardly be called alleyways, so narrow we have to pass through single file. Just a little further. The effortless grace which he moves is almost infuriating. It takes every ounce of concentration I have just to avoid tripping over loose tiles, discarded clothes, and unidentifiable rubbish. Meanwhile, his long legs almost seem to float over every obstacle. His clothes are still completely pristine, despite the soot-stained walls on either side. How the hell does he do it? I'm still trying to puzzle it out when I realize how warm it is, with me practically tripping on his heels. The tiny gap between us seems to radiate heat, like beating midday sun on the longest day of summer. Let's stay close. I definitely don't want to get lost here. I say as close to Cross as I can without actually touching him. I promise I will not lose you. Was I that obvious? Our eyes meet, and despite my best efforts, I find it hard to hold his gaze. I've never seen eyes like him. Despite our dark and dingy surroundings, it's like Cross radiates his own light wherever he looks at me. Thank you for indulging me, Jinx. I believe we have lost our tale. It's much quieter on the edge of the Amaryllis district, and the deals in the shadows look shadier. Did you enjoy our impromptu tour? Relief escapes me in a tired laugh. After the day I've had playing keep away from a Cenobium cleric seems almost normal. I wasn't in mortal peril, so that was a nice change of pace. He laughs too, a soft and pleasant chuckle, completely at odds with his usual cool demeanor. Are you sure we lost that cleric? If there's one thing you can count on, it is the elitism of the Cenobium's finest. They will not deny to follow us this far. He sounds confident enough. I was starting to wonder if we had to make a full circuit of the city to ditch them. A beam of moonlight cuts through the clouds, casting his face into sharp relief. However, I should escort you back to your lodgings. It would be unwise to let you go alone. What about you? Are you staying at the Wetwick? Of course not. Then you're going back to your clinic alone? You just said that was a bad idea. He pauses, stares at me, then his expression relaxes into a gentle smile. Fear not, Jinx. Only the most desperate or foolish would dare lay a hand on me. It sounds insane after 2 near-death soulless encounters, but part of me believes him. The few people who are still out huddle beneath street lamps and in doorways, desperate to be as close to safety as possible. Cross, on the other hand, looks more relaxed than I've ever seen him. He's strolling down the middle of the street, bold as if we were in broad daylight. Even walking alongside him makes me feel more secure, warmer both inside and out. I hang on to that faint spark and screw up my courage. Did you mean it this morning when you said I could come back to you for help? Every word. All of his earlier mirth vanishes, replaced by calm focus. I don't know what to say to that. I almost expected his offer to be a courtesy, an easy way to get me out the door. The fact that he meant it. Why do you ask? I believe I've already made my intentions to help you quite clear. His eyes flick briefly to my arms, the one to my arm, the one miraculously reattached when he found me. I can almost imagine him counting the neat stitches. I just wanted to make certain. I'm still figuring out who's trustworthy and who's trouble. I see. Eridia does tend to attract extreme individuals, including you. Ah, jinx. I decline to incriminate myself in your eyes. I can recognize a smooth deflection when I hear one. Though if he won't talk more about himself, maybe he'll talk about someone else. I decide to ask him about... let's see. Let's go with Leander. Why'd you send me to Leander for help? Few know Eridia better than Leander. The company he keeps can be questionable, but I had confidence in him. Yeah, his bloodhounds seem rough around the edges. Leander has always preferred the company of those like him. Survivors of Lowtown's harsh realities. They won't. You must have noticed how they flock to him. On, knowing no one will hear a peep of this encounter, every single person then would have to explain why he isn't assisting at the study session. That's a good thing. Leander's closest peers trust him with their lives. I would say that counts for something. To be assisting Professor Pottleworth until the students break for their midday meal. Prince Ern and have you ever been out to see Aces at the Sea Spring? Ern still seems unfazed by my apparent only once. Seems like a spring with miraculous powers would interest the doctor. Oh, do forgive me. I have places to be. Silence follows. So long that I'm not sure Curse heard me. I'm about to repeat myself when he finally speaks in a near whisper. Aces not a second after rare newcomer who has proven himself immediately worthy of respect. Whispering furiously. The Sea Spring is another matter. Hidden depths often contain unwelcome secrets. I know that my behavior will compare to that. You could say that about anything around here. There's nothing inherently wrong with nonetheless, I have seen many purported wonders, and the Sea Spring is unlike any other. Only time will tell what that means. She shies away from having, especially not after the recent royal events. Women. He's not Prince Lloyd, and you and Min sounded like you knew each other well. He is not going to rip your head heaves a long, suffering sigh. Gods forbid. I know them better than most, and less well than I would like. Not taking like you, Min is a recent arrival. Their time here has been particularly difficult. As much as I would like to help, another headache. He trails off, but I know exactly what he's talking about. Min didn't seem like the sort of person who would accept help easily. Do they always pick fights that are twice their size? I already have a dress picked out for the ball. I have implored them not to. They rarely listen. She sighs in relief. Her expression might as well go with the last one. At least you please me. How do you know Veer? Balls and gallows. Where are you headed visibly now? Stiffens, and I remember the venom in Veer's voice when he grabbed me. That fucking You were fortunate that he did nothing else. It looks like the he's far deadlier than he seems. There is a reason. Regrettably, Veer is one of my worst patients. A reason for the How did you cross his path? He seems pretty dodgy to me already. I hesitate waiting for Cross to elaborate, but he seems to find even the thought of me I'm not sure I like the way Senpai's talking about birds. With my curiosity sated, for now, I fall silent. I wish Cross had given me a little more to go on, but he seems almost as tight-lipped about the others as he is about himself. But then this little red-headed bird suddenly looked at me, flew over and invited me right into her nest. By the time we're back at the Wetwickville Morales district seems even noisier and more raucous than before. Drunken patrons overflow into the streets with a reek of spilt wine. What the hell is Senpai babbling about? How am I supposed to sleep with all this racket? Is his actual hobby writing children's stories, or is he trying to convert me into a crazy internet legend? I don't understand what you mean. What eggs and why would you be even with how tired I am? I'm not sure I'll get a week of sleep. I'm about to say goodnight to Cross when someone staggers out of the Wetwick and right into me. No. The nest and the eggs symbolize your house back, and heels teetering on the edge of the filthy gutter. Jinx. To hell with this cryptic nonsense. You've invited me to your house for coffee while your parents were away. Catches me it's almost as if you wanted me to take advantage of I find myself staring up at Cross, pressed against his chest. That's his grasp loosens, but he doesn't quite let me go. I'm going to, something shifts in his gaze. His eyes fix on my face, and I feel myself growing hot. I'm feeling a bit woozy under his is the room scrutiny. Spinning? What does he see in me?
I quickly grab Senpai's glass from his hand before he drops it and put it back on the table. Then I take a moment to admire how cute Senpai
Even
is
after he moves away, the warmth of his touch lingers through my clothes.
Senpai, that roof you put in your
quickly
collar
tug my
sure took a
cloak
long
straight,
time to take
trying
effect.
to recollect
Your
my scattered
metabolism
thoughts.
must be really strong. I expect no less
Good night.
from you, my
Thanks for
manly
everything
prince.
today.
Although
You
you
are
were
most
acting a bit
welcome.
strange before you fainted, snakes
He
and
turns and
birds
slips into the
know
crowd.
if you had made someone
Like,
hallucinate
whoops,
and
went a
ramble
little too
before
far
they're
there.
knocked out. Anyway, I should move you before you wake up. I can't keep you here. Daddy would be pissed if he found you in his house. He really doesn't like you, I'm afraid.
So we
But
just...
that's okay. I love you.
He turns and slips
you'll learn
into
how
the
to
crowd
love me
like to
too.
pick out his pristine white coat
But
with
what will I
ease.
do with you in the meantime? Daddy will be
A
real
chilly gust
angry if
howls
he
down the
sees you in
street.
his house.
When did it get
I
so
know.
cold out?
I'll put you in that storage unit I have, just until you wake up
Okay.
and learn how to love me.
Yes.
I'm sure you'll do so in no time. You won't be stubborn like the last
okay,
one,
well,
would you?
that was the end of that.
You won't
So
break
that's
my heart, right?
the
Because I
entire
would
playthrough
hate to have to
of
pierce
the
yours.
demo of Touchstarved.
No, I'm sure you won't disappoint me,
Touchstarved.
Senpai.
Wow.
You'll learn how to love me, and then I'll move in with you
So
and live happily ever
that's our
after.
first playthrough.
Doesn't that sound wonderful, Senpai?
I am
Okay,
definitely
that was
going to
good.
try playing through it again and see
That
what
was really good.
changes.
I like
if
that.
you take and pick a different
I hope you guys enjoyed it, and you'll stop
character
by for the next one. See you
trait,
later.
like backstory,
Bye.
and see how that goes. We can try changing it up and picking different characters to follow towards the end and see how that works out. So I hope you'll stop by next time for my second playthrough, and we'll see how that goes. Alright, hope you guys enjoying this, and I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.